The war between humans and Tarkalians had ended, but peace was fragile like thin glass. Both sides had lost thousands. The stars that once glowed bright with hope now carried the silent scars of destruction. Every commander, every soldier, every citizen carried wounds that no doctor could heal. In the center of that uneasy silence stood Dr. Elena Torres, the chief human diplomat. She was known not for her weapons but for her words. She had convinced angry leaders to sit down and talk instead of fighting again. Now she was on the alien homeworld of Tarkal, standing in a grand hall made of black stone and glowing veins of green energy. At the other end of the hall stood Warlord Korvath, leader of the Tarkalians, a towering creature covered in silver armor plates that looked part of his skin. His deep eyes burned like molten gold. He was a legend among his people, a symbol of victory and pride. And now, he faced a human woman with the calm of a storm about to break. Elena bowed slightly, her voice steady. "We come here in peace, Warlord. Humanity wants to honor the treaty. The bloodshed must not return." Korvath tilted his head. His heavy voice echoed through the hall. "Words, humans love their words, but words are weak if not followed by bond." The Tarkalians behind him murmured in agreement, their eyes glowing faintly. Elena raised her chin. "Then tell us what bond you seek. Humanity will listen." The warlord's golden eyes softened for a brief moment. Then he said something that froze everyone in the room. "Give me a child," he said, "a human child. One who will live among my kind, learn our ways, and teach us yours. In return, I will give him a bed, and through him our people will share peace." The Tarkalians went silent. Even the guards holding their long energy spears seemed confused. A few human officers whispered among themselves. "A child, was this some kind of insult?" Elena's face hardened. "You are asking for a hostage?" Korvath's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "No hostage, a bridge. Your kind fights for reasons we do not understand, on love, honor, guilt. I would learn this. I would raise the child as one of my own, so both our worlds remember this day not with hate but with hope." Elena didn't reply at first. She felt her heart beat faster. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. The war had just ended, and the people she represented were still grieving. To send a child away, especially to the enemy's home, sounded unthinkable. And yet something in Korvath's tone did not feel cruel. It felt curious, honest. After a long silence, she said softly, "And if we refuse?" Korvath looked up toward the glowing ceiling, then back at her. "Then peace will remain as it is now, fragile, hungry, and waiting for one mistake to die." Elena knew he was right. The peace was a thin thread between two storms. One spark could destroy it all. She closed her eyes for a second. Her mind drifted to her small son waiting on the human base. Michael, only 6 years old, with bright eyes and a heart too kind for war. She felt her throat tighten. The thought was impossible. And yet the warlord's offer wasn't just a demand. It was a symbol. A chance to build trust in a way that no treaty or signature ever could. "I need time," she said finally. Korvath gave a slow nod. "One day, human. One day to decide the future of two worlds." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. The sky outside her quarters glowed green with the reflection of Tarkal's twin moons. The alien city below pulsed with quiet energy. Tall black towers connected by bridges of light. Strange creatures glided between them like living shadows. She looked at the small hologram on her desk. It showed Michael laughing, playing with a small toy spacecraft. "Mom," he had said before she left, "promise you'll bring peace back." She touched the hologram gently. "I promised," she whispered. The next morning she met with the Human Council via long-range transmission. The discussion was fierce. Some shouted that the warlord was testing them, others that it was a trap. But one old general said something that silenced them all. Maybe this is what real peace looks like, trusting the hand that once held a blade. When the call ended, Elena sat in silence. She had made her choice, though her heart ached like it was breaking in two. The next day the hall was filled again, Tarkalian leaders, human officers, and silent guards. Korvath stood at the center, tall and still. Elena entered, holding her son's hand. Michael walked beside her with wide eyes, staring up at the massive alien figures. He wasn't afraid, just curious. Korvath's gaze softened as the child approached. "Is this the one?" he asked. Elena nodded. Her voice was calm but heavy. "This is Michael Torres. He is my son. A ripple of whispers spread through both sides. A diplomat offering her own child, and it was beyond protocol, beyond politics. It was something deeply human. Michael looked up at the warlord. "You're really tall," he said honestly. Korvath blinked. Then, to everyone's surprise, a low rumble that sounded almost like laughter came from his chest. "And you are very small," he said. "But small things can grow strong." The hall fell silent again. Elena knelt down and hugged her son tightly. "Be brave," she whispered in his ear. "Learn from them. Show them what it means to be human." Michael nodded, eyes shining. "I will, Mom." When she stood, her face was calm. She looked at Korvath and said, "You have your bridge, Warlord. Protect him as you would your own blood." Korvath placed a large clawed hand over his chest. "By the stars and the stones, I swear it." Then, with careful hands, he lifted the small human child and set him gently on his massive shoulder. The sight was strange and powerful. The tall alien warlord and the tiny human boy, side by side under the glowing light. Elena felt her heart break and heal at the same time. Around her, the humans and Tarkalians stood in silence, not as enemies, but as witnesses to something new. Korvath turned toward his people. "Remember this day," he roared. "No more blood between us. This child is the bed on which peace shall rest." As he walked away with Michael, the Tarkalian guards followed, their steps echoing like drums of destiny. Elena stayed behind, watching until the doors closed. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but she smiled faintly. Maybe, she thought. This was how real peace began, not with power, but with trust. And somewhere deep in the glowing halls of Tarkal, the human child looked up at the alien stars and whispered, "I'll make you proud, Mom." The Tarkalian city of Vornak was a place of stone and light. Tall towers shimmered like glass mountains, and the air always hummed with quiet power. For most humans, it would have been strange and cold, but for Michael Torres, it had become home. Years had passed since the day the human child was given to the alien warlord. Michael had grown taller, stronger, and wiser. His hair was dark, his eyes bright, a spark of humanity shining among giants. To the Tarkalians, he was called Child of the Pact. Some respected him, others watched with suspicion. But none ignored him. Every morning he trained with the young Tarkalian warriors. Their bodies were covered in silver scales, their movements sharp and powerful. They learned the art of combat, but Michael learned something else too. He learned their songs, their history, their sense of honor. Korvath, the old warlord, often watched from above the training grounds. He saw the boys' clumsy attempts at first, small fists swinging at air, weak legs stumbling. But he also saw the determination that never faded. Michael never gave up, no matter how hard the training became. One morning, after a long and tiring session, Korvath approached him. "Why do you keep trying, little human?" he asked in his deep, rumbling voice. "You cannot match their strength. You are made of soft flesh." Michael wiped sweat from his brow and smiled. "Maybe, but I can think faster. And I can learn." The warlord tilted his head. "Learn? What can you teach a race born for war?" Michael grinned. "Maybe how not to fight." For a moment the warlord was silent. Then surprisingly he laughed, a sound so rare that even the guards turned to look. From that day Korvath began to see the boy not as a symbol, but as something more, a spark of change. The years passed like flowing sand. Michael became a teenager, his voice deeper, his eyes wiser. He spoke both languages, human standard and the complex growling tones of the Tarkalians, with ease. He learned how to wield their weapons, but also how to grow their luminous plants and repair their machines. He also taught the Tarkalians something new. He taught them about human laughter. At first, it was strange for them. Tarkalians saw laughter as weakness, an uncontrolled sound. But Michael would tell stories at night, simple ones about life on Earth, about dogs chasing their tails or about how his mother used to sing to him while cooking. Slowly, the great warriors began to laugh too, a deep, rumbling laugh that echoed through the halls, and when they laughed, something changed. The tension in their cities began to fade. The Tarkalians started greeting each other with small smiles instead of hard stares. Korvath noticed this change. He would often walk beside Michael and say, "You make my people strange, little one." "They smile more now. They speak of peace," Michael would reply softly. "Then maybe that's not strange. Maybe that's good." But not everyone agreed. Some Tarkalian commanders believed that the Warlord was growing weak. They whispered that the human boy had poisoned their traditions. In hidden halls, they spoke of reclaiming their old pride through war. One of them was General Vrax, a tall, sharp-eyed Tarkalian who had lost many family members in the war with humans. He watched Michael with cold hatred. "The child of our enemy should not walk among us," he said one night to his followers. "He brings laughter but takes away our honor. Soon we will be soft." Meanwhile, on the human side, not all were happy either. Some humans believed Michael had been taken as a hostage and brainwashed. They called for his return, claiming he no longer belonged to humanity. Thus, the bridge of peace began to shake, both sides doubting the promise made years ago. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the alien city, Michael climbed to the highest terrace of the palace. From there, he could see the whole world glowing in green light. Korvath joined him, his heavy footsteps echoing on the stone. "You seem troubled," the Warlord said. Michael nodded. "The people don't trust me. Some think I'm not human anymore. Some think I'll never be Tarkalian." Korvath looked up at the moons. "When I was young, I thought strength was only in the blade. I thought mercy was for the weak. But you showed me another way. Maybe that is why they fear you, because you are both of us." Michael looked at him with quiet respect. "And what about you? Do you trust me?" The Warlord's golden eyes met his. "I gave my word to your mother. I said I would protect you as my own. I have done that, but now I see that you protect more than yourself. You protect the future." There was silence for a moment. Then Michael smiled. "Then I'll keep trying." The next day, chaos struck. During a ceremony marking 10 years of peace, an explosion shook the main square. Smoke filled the air. Shouts and alarms echoed everywhere. The Tarkalians moved quickly to secure the area. But the damage was done. It was an attack, and not from humans, but from the Tarkalian rebels led by General Vrax. They wanted to destroy the treaty and return to war. Michael ran through the smoke toward the injured, helping both Tarkalians and the few visiting humans. His hands trembled, but his heart was steady. He remembered his mother's voice. "Be brave. Learn from them. Show them what it means to be human." When he reached the center, he found Korvath injured. One arm burned, his armor cracked. The old Warlord looked up at him and said weakly, "It seems peace still has enemies." Michael knelt beside him. "Then I'll fight for it. Not with weapons, but with truth." Before he could say more, a group of rebel soldiers appeared. General Vrax stepped forward. "So this is the child of peace," he sneered. "Tell me, boy, do you still think laughter can win wars?" Michael stood tall, though his heart pounded. "No, but I think understanding can stop one before it starts." Vrax growled. "You sound like a human." Michael smiled faintly. "I am." Before Vrax could strike, the loyal Tarkalian guards arrived, surrounding him. The crowd watched as the rebels were captured. Korvath, though weak, rose to his feet. He looked at the boy who had once been small enough to sit on his shoulder. "Today," he said, his voice firm again, "this child has shown more courage than armies. Let every Tarkalian remember, peace is not weakness. It is strength of a higher kind." The crowd roared in agreement. Some even chanted Michael's name. That night, the city lights glowed brighter than ever. Michael sat beside the old Warlord in the grand hall. The air smelled of smoke and healing medicine. Korvath looked at him and said quietly, "You were right, little one. You taught us to laugh. You taught us to care. You even taught us to dream." Michael smiled. "And you taught me to stand tall." The old Warlord nodded slowly. "You are no longer a child of one world. You are the bridge between stars." Michael looked out the window where the twin moons hung above the dark horizon. In their light, the future no longer looked divided. Still, he knew it wasn't over. The rebels were defeated, but distrust still lingered. Humans still watched from afar, wondering if peace could last. And somewhere deep in his heart, he felt a call, a quiet whisper from the home he hadn't seen in years. Earth. One day he would return. Not as a child given away, but as a messenger carrying the proof that two worlds could become one. For now, though, he stayed beside the Warlord who had once been his enemy, now his mentor, his family. Together they watched the stars, knowing that the hardest part was still ahead. But Michael Torres had learned the truth. Strength was not in the sword, but in the heart that dared to reach across it. The years passed quietly after the rebellion. The wounds of the past began to heal, though slowly. The city of Vornak stood tall again, rebuilt from the ashes of war and fear. Under the twin suns of Tarkal, humans and Tarkalians had learned to live side by side. But peace, as always, was fragile. Now 20 years old, Michael Torres was no longer the small boy who once stood trembling before the Warlord. He had become tall, calm, and confident. His eyes carried both warmth and strength. He wore Tarkalian armor trimmed with the blue colors of Earth, a symbol of unity between the two races. The Tarkalians respected him deeply. Some even called him the Bridge of Suns. He was both human and Tarkalian in spirit, a son of two worlds. Yet even as his name grew in honor, shadows began to rise once again. Far away, human colonies had grown restless. Some humans still feared the Tarkalians, remembering the wars of the past. They did not trust the peace treaty. Rumors spread that the Tarkalians were secretly rebuilding their armies. At the same time, some Tarkalian leaders whispered that the humans were planning to attack first. Old hatred stirred quietly, like embers waiting for air. And when communication between Earth and Tarkal broke down for several weeks due to solar storms, fear turned to suspicion. The fragile peace began to shake again. Inside the Grand Hall of Vornak, Warlord Korvath, now old and weary, sat on his throne of dark crystal. His once strong armor was now marked by time. He watched Michael approach, his long steps echoing softly. "Reports from the border," Korvath said in a low tone. "Human ships are moving. They say it is a defensive patrol. Others say it is a sign of war." Michael frowned. "And what do you believe?" The Warlord's golden eyes glowed faintly. "I believe fear makes fools of all creatures, even those who dream of peace." Michael nodded. "Then let me go. Let me speak to them. I can make them understand." Korvath's eyes softened. "You would face your own people again after so many years?" Michael smiled sadly. "They are my people too. Both of you are." The old Warlord rose slowly from his seat. "Then go, my son. Carry our truth to the stars." Michael boarded a Tarkalian diplomatic ship, a vessel of silver wings and glowing light. As it rose through the misty atmosphere, he looked down at the city that had raised him. He thought of the laughter, the lessons, and the countless nights when Korvath told him stories about strength and honor. He whispered to himself, "I will not let this end." The journey to the human frontier took days. When the ship arrived, the human fleet surrounded them almost immediately. Hundreds of gray ships glimmered in the void, their weapons glowing softly, not yet firing, but ready. A voice crackled over the comms. "Unidentified Tarkalian vessel. You are entering restricted space. Identify yourself." Michael stepped forward and replied, "This is Michael Torres of Earth, envoy of peace from Tarkal." There was a long pause, then another voice, calmer, said, "Michael Torres, we thought you were dead." When his ship docked at the human command station, Michael stepped out carefully. The humans around him stared in disbelief. He wore alien armor but spoke their language. His voice carried both authority and kindness. The commander, Admiral Hayes, looked him over. "You've grown," he said softly. "Last time I saw you, you were a child in your mother's arms." Michael smiled faintly. "I remember her too. She wanted peace." The Admiral's face tightened. "And yet here we are again, at the edge of another war." Michael looked around the command deck where officers watched him nervously. "It doesn't have to be war. Tarkal isn't preparing for invasion. They fear you as much as you fear them. Fear is the real enemy." The Admiral crossed his arms. "How do we know you're not speaking for them?" Michael met his eyes. "Because I am them, and I'm you too." The room went silent. The Admiral saw no lies in his voice. For the first time, he truly saw the human in the armor and the hope in his eyes. Meanwhile, deep in Tarkalian space, Korvath sat in his chamber, his heart heavy. He could feel that something was changing. The winds of destiny were shifting again. His advisors urged him to prepare for battle, but he waited. "The boy will come through," he said quietly. "He carries both our hearts." But then came news that human ships had moved closer. One wrong move, one spark, and the stars would burn again. Back on the human command station, Michael stood before a council meeting. Holographic maps of fleets filled the air. Both sides were ready to strike. Michael raised his voice. If you fire, you will destroy everything we built. The Tarkalians do not want war. They want to live. Just like us, a council member scoffed. How can we trust them? They once tried to wipe us out. Michael's tone stayed calm. Yes, and humans once did the same to them. But we survived because both sides had the courage to stop. Because my mother and your leaders believed peace was worth the risk. He paused, his voice quieter now. Give me a chance to prove it again. One message. Let me speak to both fleets at once. The room was silent. Finally, Admiral Hayes nodded. You have 1 hour. Across the void between stars, a communication channel opened. Tarkalian warships and human cruisers, thousands of them, received the same transmission. Michael appeared as a hologram between the two armadas. His voice carried through the airwaves clear and steady. I was born human, he began, raised among those you once called monsters. I have seen both sides, the courage, the fear, the hope. And I have learned one thing. Peace is not given. It is built piece by piece with trust. He looked toward the human fleet. You fear them because you remember the war. Then toward the Tarkalians. You fear them because you remember pain. His words grew stronger. But I stand here as proof that two hearts can share the same beat. I am not one or the other, I am both. And if you destroy each other now, you destroy the only thing that made us different from beasts, the ability to change. There was silence. Even the stars seemed to wait. Then he added softly, My mother once told me, be brave and show them what it means to be human. Today, I ask both of you, show me what it means to be more. For a long time, no one moved. Then, slowly, one by one, the ships powered down their weapons. First the Tarkalians, then the humans. The void that had been filled with fear now shimmered with quiet light. On Tarkal, Warlord Korvath watched the transmission and smiled faintly. He has done it, he whispered.
He has become the bridge. Moments later, his body gave out, his long life finally ending in peace.
His last sight was of the twin suns rising over his world, brighter than ever before. Weeks later, Michael returned to Tarkal carrying messages of friendship signed by both governments. When he entered the Grand Hall, the Tarkalians bowed their heads, not to a human, but to a hero. He stood before the empty throne where Korvath once sat. For a moment, he felt the weight of all that had come before, the promise, the pain, the years of learning. He spoke softly into the silence. You kept your word, old friend. You gave me a bed, and I gave you a bridge. Outside, the two suns rose together, their golden light spreading across the city. Humans and Tarkalians worked side by side, rebuilding, planting, teaching, and laughing. The prophecy of peace had come true not through power, but through courage, the courage of a child who became the voice of two worlds. And so, under the twin suns of Tarkal, the name Michael Torres became more than history. It became a legend whispered among the stars. The story of the boy who proved that even in a galaxy full of war, humanity's greatest strength was not its weapons, but its heart.